Madani Forum 2024, catalyzing the next Muslim civilization revival. Alhamdulillah, I hope you had a good lunch break and ready to resume our third session for our day one. We welcome our guests of honors who just walked in, and inshallah will be the presenters for our third session for the day. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, to continue the forum of the Global Madani Forum today for the panel session 3 with the theme Strategies to Revive Islamic and Asian Civilizations in the Next 100 Years, I would like to invite our moderator, Madam Susanna Muhammad Samsudi, IKIM's Fellow. A little introduction, a brief one. Madam Susanna Muhammad Samsudi graduated with a BBA Honours Finance from UiTM and Master of Economics from the National University of Malaysia. She has over 2 decades of experience in both the financial industry and academia. She also holds a Certified Financial Planner qualification since 2004. Previously worked in Islamic fund management companies with a track record of building a billion fund size and was awarded top 300 most influential women in Islamic Business and Finance 2021 by Cambridge IFA. As a fellow at the Center for Economics and Social Studies, Institute of Islamic Understanding Malaysia IKIM, she appeared regularly on IKIM Radio and her writings have been published in newspapers, book chapters and academic journals. Please welcome. I hand over the session to you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Puan MC, for the introduction. Okay. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon. Salam Malaysia Madani. Okay. Today, Alhamdulillah, today we are here. We have the opportunity to be with our renowned panelists who will share and discuss a very important topic for today, which is the strategies to revive Islamic and Asian civilizations in the next 100 years. So I would like to invite all the panelists to come on stage. Okay. Without further ado, let me introduce this gentleman on stage today. Okay. Okay. The first one on my left is Mr. Amir Ali. Mr. Amir Ali bin Wali Muhammad. Okay, Mr. Amir is currently the Chief Executive Officer and Director General of Yayasan Pembangunan Ekonomi Islam Malaysia, YAPIM, or in English, Malaysian Islamic Economic Development Foundation. Since April last year, Mr. Amir Ali has 35 years of experience with 26 years spent in the securities and funds management industry. He graduated from the International Islamic University Malaysia in 1988 with an honours degree of Bachelor's of Business Administration. He is also a registered financial planner under the Malaysian Financial Planning Council. Okay. The next person sitting besides Mr. Amir Ali is perhaps not need a detailed introduction. He is YB Senator Dr. Zulkifli Hassan, who is currently a Deputy Minister in the Prime Minister Department for Religious Affairs. Previously, YB Senator Dr. Zulkifli was a former Deputy Rector for Student Development and Community Engagement at International Islamic University of Malaysia, USIM, and he was also the Dean of Faculty of Sharia and Law at the same university. Dr. Zulkifli received the prestigious Global Islamic Finance Award as the Upcoming Scholar in 2016 and the Excellent Alumni Award in conjunction with the 100th anniversary celebration of Madrasah Idrisiyah, graced by Duli Yang Maha Mulia Paduka Sri Sultan Nazrin Muizzuddin Shah Ibnu Almarhum Sultan Azlam Muhibbuddin Shah Al-Maghfurullah. His research interests include corporate and Sharia governance and regulation and Islamic finance. Okay, the third person we have here is YB Yang Berhormat Tuan Steven Sim Chee Siong. Okay, he is a Minister of Human Resources of Malaysia since December last year. If you are wondering why his name is is not on the leaflet, okay, he is here. Thank you for your presence today. Upon the special request of our Yang Amat Berhormat Prime Minister. Okay, a brief introduction about YB Steven Sim. Okay, he received his early education in Bukit Mertajam High School. He graduated from University of Malaya in Computer Science in 2004 and a Master's in Sustainable Development from Sunway University in 2020. Born on 13 May 1982 in Bukit Mertajam, Penang, YB Steven Sim is presently the youngest cabinet minister at the age of 42. He was awarded the Young Global Leader by the Penang Institute in 2012. Welcome, YB Steven. And the last one but not least, okay, we have a special panelist for today, Dr. Ahmed Temo. He is currently a counselor for religious affairs at the embassy of the Republic of Turkey. He graduated from Istanbul University at Faculty of Theology in 2004. He completed his master's degree at Marmara University at Department of Islamic Law in 2007. In 2014, he completed his doctorate degree with his dissertation entitled The Missing Link in the History of Islamic Legal Theory, the development of Usul al-Fiqh between Ash-Shafi'i and Al-Jazaz during the 9th and early 10th centuries. After that, he is attached with Faculty of Theology at Istanbul University as an associate professor. His main research interests include Islamic law and human rights, religion and state, among others. Okay, that's all the basic information about all our panelists. Please give a warm welcome and clap to all. I need to make sure that we have enough time for this slot. Okay, now it's almost 3 o'clock. So we just go straight to our focus today, which is the strategies for the revival, the civilizational revival for the next century. Okay, to begin our session, let us hear from our prominent panelists on stage today. What's their thought and the insight of what are the best strategies to revive Islamic and Asian civilization. So for all panelists, I appreciate if you can limit your sharing within 10 minutes or so. So we shall start for this first round of introduction with the youngest one on stage, YB Steven Sim.
Can I close this laptop? Boleh tutup laptop so that they can see my face. I think so can. Okay.
I'm sure they can see very clearly from our media live.
Okay. Thank you to the Madam Moderator. I also wonder why I was invited, but I think it is always good to have a different perspective. I'm not sure whether my perspective is useful to you, but I'll try. And you know, the topic is to think about 100 years from now. I will start by bringing us back 500 years ago. Imagine 500 years ago, the year was 1512. Around this time of the year, May, June, July, the desert of Australia becomes colder, and then the sea, the South China becomes hotter, and we know the sciences. Hot air rises, and then the cold air comes to take its place. And this is where you have the southwest monsoon. The wind blows from the southwest, bringing to our land, this land of Tanah Melayu at that time, traits, culture, languages. But in that particular year, a young Portuguese traveler arrived in Malacca. It's about my age. And I'm not the youngest minister. The youngest minister is Saudara Ewan Benedict. He's 1 year younger than me. His name is Tom Pyrus. And when he arrived in Malacca, he wrote a book called Summa Oriental. It is a book which chronicles his travel in Asia, stemming from the Red Sea up to Japan. And among his observations in that book, Tom Pyrus wrote, there were 84 languages being spoken on the streets of Malacca. 84 languages. And the fact of language and cultural diversity is corroborated by another literature, this time written by an unnamed author of the Malay ancestor. Kita tak tahu nama dia. His Hikayat Hang Tuah. I'm not going to argue here whether Hang Tuah exists or not, but the fact is Hikayat Hang Tuah existed. It's written 500 years ago by an unnamed Malay author. And in that book, the author imagined that his protagonist, his hero, the archetype of a Malay superhero, Hang Tuah, is conversant in 12 languages. He's conversant in 12 languages. One must wonder, where did he learn all these 12 languages? I believe, and corroborated by historical record, from the multicultural society around him. And in Summa Orientalis, Tom Pyrus actually observed the names of the countries where the traders came in the port of Malacca. And the name, for me, reads like a United Nations list. There are Moors from Cairo, Mecca, Aden, Abyssian, men of Kirwa, Malindi, Ormus, Parsis, Rome, Turks, Turkomans, Christians, Armenian, Gujaratis, men from Chau, Dabur, Goa, Kingdom of Deccan, Malabars, Indians, merchants from Orissa, Ceylon, Bangar, Arakan, Pegu, Siamese, men of Kedah, Malays, men of Pahang, Patani, Cambodia, Champa, Cochin, China, Chinese, men of Brunei, Laos, men of Tanjung Pura, I think, written in Portuguese, Bangka, Lingga, Maluka, Banda, Binda, Timur, Madura, Java, Sunda, Palembang, Jambi. The list goes on. Right? My point of illustrating this story from historical record is to show that this land has been cosmopolitan before it was even a thing. And Tom Pyrus said this, because of our diversity, because of the strategic location of Malacca in this land, whoever is lord over Malacca has his hand on the throat of Venice. It means whoever controls Malacca controls the world superpower of that time. Right? And this is our strength, not just because of our geography, but more importantly, because of our ability to accommodate diversity. But sometimes I wonder, how can we all live in peace and great harmony for the last half a millennium? Because obviously there are some parties who are telling us today we are very different. Well, that is true, we are different. But our differences are irreconcilable. Perhaps that may be true, I don't know. But being irreconcilable means we cannot live in peace together. I think that is clearly false. At the end of May this year, I joined Prime Minister Dato Anwar to Japan for a work trip, and Prime Minister delivered a speech in University of Keio in honor of the great Japanese philosopher and polymath, the late Professor Toshiko Izutsu. And I encourage you to read the Prime Minister's speech. It's available on the internet, a great speech. Professor Izutsu was a Japanese translator of the Quran, bridging between Japanese and Muslim worldview. And I tried, after Dato Sri Anwar's encouragement, I tried to read Professor Izutsu's magnum opus titled Sufism and Taoism. I was amazed by the writer's profound understanding of both the Andalusian Arabi's ideas of Sufism and also the Chinese Chuangzi's view of Taoism. Between these two great philosophies, there are very little historical affinity and even connection. But Professor Izutsu managed to not only elucidate them separately, but also to find threads of similarities. And one must remember, Izutsu himself was neither an Andalusian Arab or a Chinese. And he's also neither a Muslim nor likely not a Taoist. In other words, or in Anwar's word, and Anwar wrote this in 1996. What Izutsu did, he wrote this in 1996, led to the discovery of a meta-philosophy of Oriental philosophies. And this dispelled the notion that because of its religious diversity, Asia would ipso facto be culturally divergent and disjointed. In other words, he's saying, despite the diversity that we have, we are not divided. We can live in peace. But let me get this straight. I'm not suggesting religious syncretism. I'm not even suggesting universalism. I am definitely not suggesting that all religions are the same. In fact, no. If we say that all religions are the same, we are diminishing the value of our own peculiarities. But my dear friends, what I want to emphasize here is diversity can be a strength. In fact, counterintuitively, our best tradition often seems to celebrate diversity, or at least do not see diversity as a bad thing. I'll give you an example. The Christian story of Tower of Babel and Pentecost in the Bible seems to tell us that God's solution to the problems of sin is not to make everyone speak the same language, but in the diversity of languages. A pivotal verse in the Quran, which my Muslim friend taught me, Surah Al-Hujurat, ayat ke-13, said, celebrates diversity as divinely ordained. It says, O mankind, we created you from a pair of men and women and made you into diverse nations and tribes so that you may, all of you have a greater understanding, better understanding of this verse than me, so that you may li ta'ra'afu, Arabic word for that we may know each other. And another verse in Quran, Surah Al-Ma'idah said, had God will, he would have made you a single community. Hatred for diversity and plurality is consistently a pattern in authoritarian society. Dictators hate diversity. They promote unity as if unity or uniformity is a good thing, because they are in fact afraid of differences. When people are different, they are difficult to control and manage. It was Lenin himself who said, trust is good, but control is better. But when I say Lenin, don't think that hatred for diversity is a problem strictly confined to Cold War communist regimes. The goal of capitalism is singularity, a common market, because it is easier when everyone have the same need. They need the same products and services. Hence, you have advertisement telling us whether you are a Malay, you are a Chinese, Iban, Kadazan, Orang Asar, you are Malaysian, you are from Turkey, you will need to buy the same product and service in order to be better. And in geopolitics, we see the shift from a unipolar to a multipolar world, because simply the world cannot be subjected to the values of a single dominant superpower. Where are all this leading to? I want to stress two things by way of conclusion. Number one, diversity against the uniformity. Diversity is our legacy in this land. It is not a bad thing, and in fact, it is our strength. And therefore, we must continue to cherish and preserve it. This is the ASEAN way. This is the Malaysian way. This is the 21st century way forward against uniformity and unipolarity. And secondly, on Prime Minister Anwar's Madani model. I first heard of this word Madani when I was in high school. Anwar Ibrahim, then Deputy Prime Minister, introduced it to us. And as a young boy, I was taught that the word meant civilization. I did not think much of it until later in life. But when Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim reintroduced Madani last year, I began reading up on it. The description of Madani from my reading that is closest to my heart is from the Muslim polymath Al-Farabi, who wrote this book called Al-Madinah Al-Fadila, meaning the virtuous city, or the Madani society in my own translation. He described the Madani society as like a human body. Every part and organ working together to ensure the healthy, normal function of our body. No organ or no parts, no matter how small, can say that they are not important. And no matter how mean or how small, yes, there are degrees of importance, there are differences, but the hands cannot say to the legs, I am better and I can live without you. Even the head cannot claim credit over other parts. In fact, parts which are deemed small, weak, or mean should be given greater protection and greater care. And this is amazing. This, in fact, echoes what St. Paul said, describing the Christian community, that God has composed the body, giving greater honor to the parts that lack it, that there may be no division of the body, but that members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffers together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together. In a Madani society, diversity is celebrated and no one is left behind. This is probably the way of life we are all very accustomed to here in Malaysia, or at least something that we all can aspire logically here in Malaysia. But take a moment to project this to the world. Imagine a global Madani society where countries and communities celebrate diversity, respect differences, work together for common good, and not try to impose lopsided morality against others. Perhaps in answer to the question, survival and the revival of Islam and Asian culture in the next 100 years, perhaps the Madani model is the model we need in these chaotic times. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, YB Steven Sim. Okay, it's interesting to hear that apart from the two things YB mentioned, diversity and Madani, you mentioned about Sufism, which is very, to me, which is very interesting, and I can sum it in few words. There's no sustainability without spirituality. Okay. Okay, now without wasting our time, we move on to our second panelist, YB Senator Dr. Zulkifli, to share your thoughts on the strategies to revive our civilization for the next century.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ومن شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا تحية طيبة وبركة من عند الله ما بعد. Thank you very much to Madam Moderator. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and very good evenings. My esteemed panelists, YB Steven Sims, Tuan Haji Amir, Dr. Ahmad, Dato Muhammad Nurmanuti, the chairman of IKIM, Dato Ahmad Azam, and also Dr. Azam Adil. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, first of all, I would like to express my sincere appreciation and heartfelt gratitude for having me. It is always feels great to be back as a panelist after 6 months left the academia. I'm now experiencing the new world as a senator, as a deputy minister at the Religious Affairs JPM. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we have only not much time to discuss a very huge and very important and significant topics, but let us analyze the realities and then we can offer something to the world. Due to the failures and crises of the unipolar world's order, there is a growing call for multi-civilizational revivals in the world against the backdrops of a singular civilizational impositions that claims to be universals. In this regard, we need to create a new global civilizations. A new global order needs to be created. We need new policies and attitude. We live in one world. National interests must be balanced with the global interests. Power must be shared. Islamic world, the Asians, Africa, and the rest of the world must be integrated. When we talk about 100 years, we must refer, or we may refer, to the hadith by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, narrated by Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن الله يبعث لهذه الأمة على رأس كل 100 سنة ما يجدد لها دينها. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send in every 100 years, a person who will renew these religions from deviance. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, the hadith, the lesson from this hadith is not for us to wait for the reformists to come and to fall from the sky or to fall from the heavens. Rather, to get ready with the necessary preparations and appropriate strategies, short-term and long-term. The notion of this hadith is for us to develop appropriate strategies, strategic futures, and towards nation building and civilizational renewals. So let me analyze first the Asian civilization and the Islamic worlds, and then we can think about the realities and what next. So for 500 years, the West has been a key and influential center of power and political initiative. Key conflicts took place in the West, and key innovations and political ideas arose in Western countries. Today, the center of global economic gravity is inevitably shifting to the East. So the fall of any civilization is inevitable throughout the history. And in fact, Allah has mentioned in the Quran in Surah Al-A'raf, for each community, there is an appointed term. When their time arrives, they can neither delay it for a moment, nor could they advance it. This is affirmed by many historians and scholars. Oxford Spangler, in his book, The Decline of the West, talk about the declines of the Western civilizations. Even the Knott Toynbee, a study of history, mentioned the cyclical theory of decline, rise, and fall of civilizations. So in the 19th century, the world was Europeanized. In the 20th century, it was Americanized. Now, in the 21st century, the world is being irreversibly Asianized. So in other words, the world will become more Asian-centric day and day. Parakhana, in his books, The Future is Asians, talk about it. Even Kishore Mahbubani, in his book, Has China Won, also talk about this premise. And Farid Zakaria and Henry Kissinger, his book, Does 21st Century Belongs to Asia, is also confirmed that the world is increasingly Asia-centric. And then we can know that now 21st century will become Asian century. So what about the Islamic world? So let us have a look at the positions and the realities in the Islamic world. In 2020, or recently, from the numbers of the populations, about 1.8 billion Muslims, representing 25% of the world populations. In 2030, it will become 2.2 billion. So in terms of numbers, the Muslim will become more and more, and the populations will get increased from day to day and from time to time. The question is, what is the future of the Islamic world, and what is the future of Asian civilizations? The Muslim world needs an independent future directions that is integrated with Asian civilization and the rest of the world. And this, what kind of the futures that we want to have? Whether this is accidental futures, or is it just a used futures, or we want to have a strategic futures. So in 21st November of 1979, about 50 years ago, 46 years ago, there was Iranian revolutions. The Iranian revolutions promises many things, and in fact is considered as some call it a promise that Islam will rejuvenated, or Islam will revive again, the Islamic resurgence fueled by the Iranian revolutions. But what happened after 46 years? But what happened after 79? We can see that the Muslim world still underdeveloped, and it seems that it's a false promise. And now we are moving towards the 16th centuries, inshallah by 2076. But what we need to do, so from our observations, we have many revival projects under different terminologies, under different projects. Since day one, we have de-Westernizations, we have de-colonizations, desecularizations, harmonizations, integrations, hybridizations, Islamizations, Islamicizations. So there are many various projects in order to bring back Islam at its place. But after 46 years, after 79, what happens? So if we can see what happened after 79, from the index, from the innovation index, from the human development index, from the human happy planet index, safest country index, freedom index, environmental planet index, competitiveness index, all Muslims worlds or Islamic worlds are not or are still underdeveloped or a poor performance of generally of all the index. For example, even Malaysia. Malaysia, if we look at the competitiveness index at number 36, corruption index 57th, happy planet index 59, human development index 62, innovation index 36, ease of doing business number 12, economic freedom 45th, safest country 10th, world press freedom index 107th. So from this we can see that even the Islamic worlds still do not have the resurgence. We are still underperforming. The poor performance of all in many sectors, in many various fields. And even until today, we can see that we face various problems. The spread of Islamophobia and media stereotyping of Muslims, freedom is still limited, lack of innovations, and fell behind in science and technology, political subservience, incompetent management, and so on and so forth. So many things. In this regard, I think what I can conclude before I close the sessions, we need a new projects. We need to revisit the existing projects. Civil Islamization, desecularization, decolonization. We need new visions. We need a new narrative. If we don't have the new one, we need to revisit the existing one. What we need is that a multi-dimensional, integrated, balanced, and shared values and visions. Islamic world and Asian must be integrated, number one. Number two, the national interests, the ummah interests, must be balanced with the global interests. Number three, the power, the resources must be shared. Number four, multi-civilizational order, revival and order must be there. And finally, we need a multiculturalism and due recognitions of unique characteristics of different cultures and practices. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, from these conclusions, a new visions, a new projects, we need institutions. We need to institutionalize these projects. If we can see around the world, we talk about the futures. They have many various institutions to think and to also to foresee what will happen in the futures, such as the Future of Humanity Institute, Oxford University, Center for the Study of Existential Risk in Cambridge University. The existing institutions we have, IIIT, ISTAC, Center for Post-Normal Policy and Future Studies, we have one. But we need to explore beyond the existing what we have. So in this regard, I would like to propose and also to throw in an idea that It's a time for us to institutionalize the revised versions of the revival projects. Perhaps we might want to institutionalize the Islamic and Asians multi-civilizational revival institute. If you look at the trends and also the emerging issues, there are 4 points will shape this century. Number 1, the millennials. The millennials will shape the centuries. For example, in Asia now we have 800 million millennials. So meaning that more consumers, more opportunities. Number 2 is the middle class. 100 millions of people nowadays join the middle class. So it increased the purchasing powers and it focused now in the Asian civilization, so on the Asian side. And number 3, metropolitans. When they talk about metropolitan, the urbanizations, the growing urbanizations. If you look at the Asia, more than 300 cities, more than 1 million populations. Unlike Europe, only 18, unlike US, only 10. So meaning that more populations, more opportunities. And finally, about the technology, the mobile enables, the 5Gs, and so on. So if you think about this, when you talk about the Islamic and Asian civilization for the next 100 years, we need to think about the new visions, the revised visions, which is multi-dimensional, which is must be integrated, must be balanced, and must be shared values. Wabillahi taufiq wa hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, YB Senator Dr. Zulkifli. Okay, it's very interesting to hear that how he shared the civilization evolved from Europe to America in 20th century and perhaps moving to Asia in the near future. And for this one, perhaps it's also a contributing factor to the civilization of Islamic world. And for this one also, we need a new vision and strategy. And among these strategies proposed by YB Senator is that for us to have new institution as well as strengthening the existing ones. So I believe from YB Senator background as in the Sharia governance also a very important factor to make sure this civilization will take place. Okay, now we move on to our third panelist, Mr. Amir Ali, and I'm sure with his background in the Islamic fund management industry, Islamic financial industry, and Islamic economics, you have something interesting to share with all of us today regarding the civilization from the economic perspective.
Thank you, Puan Susanna, whom I've known, I think, for more than 10 years because we were from the same industry, fund management. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm very honored. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. I'm very honored and I feel very tiny today because I'm now sitting together with a cabinet minister, a deputy minister. Should I speak for 5 minutes or 10 minutes? Puan Susanna? Tak dengar, tak apa, it's okay. Okay, we are talking about 100 years ahead. But let me tell you what I was told 40 years ago. When I joined International Islamic University in 1984, we taught about Islamic economics. And we were talking about Islamic man versus economic man. And now we are talking about a lot of Islamic finance products being in the market. But when 40 years ago, I was taught by my lecturers that the very foundation for the success of an Islamic economic system would be Islamic men. So long as the men are economic men, then it will be crippled. Why? Let's talk about who are economic men. They are utilitarian. I hope you still remember the utility theory in economics. They are material sense. and serving self-interest. These are the three basic things about economic men. And for Islamic economic, the very purpose of Islamic economics would be moral development. How can you talk about economics and moral together? So Islamic economic, one is moral development, two, promoting unity, three, social justice, four, fair and equitable, not equal, equitable distribution, five, circulation of wealth, where hoarding is haram, circulation of wealth is important, and last but not least, provide basic human needs. So here we're talking about Maqasid Syariah. Yes, we have Daruriyah, Hajiyah, and Tahsiniyah. The providing of basic human needs come under the Hajiyah, Daruriyah. Okay, this is where we have the third sector in the economy, which is the social finance, which I will deliberate a little bit later. So until today, after 40 years from my first year in the university, I just wonder whether we have enough or whether we do have Islamic men. We have Islamic economic system, but do we have Islamic men? This is when I can recall my lecturer, he's from the Center for Fundamental Knowledge, Almarhum Professor Tan Sri Muhammad Kamal Hassan. May he be peace over there. He always say about Islamization. To make people Islamic, you have to Islamize. You have to Islamize them. Oh, it's quite tough. Huh? But Arwah can say it very, very fluently. So it's not Islamizing, but Islamicizing. Making people Islamic no matter whether he is a Muslim or not, but he adore and follow the principles, and he doesn't do something which are not in line with the Islamic principles. So we need this kind of people. So over the next 100 years, in my opinion, we need to develop people who are Islamic. Because I think we have not done it well over the last 40 years. While the Islamic economic system prosper, but the Islamic man development, I'm not very sure, but I can say that it doesn't fulfill the objective which I was taught 40 years ago. When we talk about civilization, it is a very big word. But what does it mean? It comes from the Latin word civis, meaning someone who lives in a town. But I like to just quote what Gandhi said about civilization. The observance of morality and preservation of morality. So he touched on morality when he talks about civilization. And Qardawi, Almarhum Qardawi, talked about comprehensive way of life. So when we talk about Islamic civilization, we should emphasize on equitable, justice, tolerance, unity, morality, dignity, righteousness, moral principles, and moderation, and the middle path. Ladies and gentlemen, let me go to the second section of my presentation, which is, where are we now? Let's talk about the Muslims. Where are we now from the economic perspective? I just would like to concentrate on Islamic because the others will talk about the other. If we look into Fortune 500, the top 10, do we see any Muslim companies? Yeah, we have Saudi Aramco as number 2. That's not individual or group of individual owned. It's owned by country. But how about individual owned? No, we don't have. In Malaysia, if I can, I take the Bumi Putra perspective. My friend Tan Sri Wahid Omar recently told that Bumi Putra only has 7% corporate dominance in the Malaysian public listed company. That is the statistics in 2022. Out of 1,000 listed companies, only 62 are controlled by Bumi Putras. Are we successful? Where are we? So what are the issues? And what should we do? In my opinion, over the next 100 years, we have to develop. One would be people of financial literacy. Okay. A lot of people actually lose money because of scammers, because they don't have financial literacy. How can you make 50% in a year when the risk-free return is only 3.25%? But there are some people who just do not understand the equation that I just told you. And there are also people who scream at us or scream at the authorities, not allowing them to withdraw money meant for retirement, saying that if I die, who will take it? My answer is simple. If you die, your wife and your children will benefit from it. And we don't have that kind of deferred gratification as what being told in the financial literacy or financial planning. Many of us know. And what more in terms of business literacy? So we need to increase our business literacy. Then some people say, why must we become rich? My answer is, if we don't become rich, how on earth are we going to help those needy people? Allah Ta'ala says in Quran, Al-Dhariyat 19, and in their wealth, there was a rightful share fulfilled for the beggar and the poor. So if we just secure what we need, nothing extra, so how are we going to help them? And narrated by At-Tabari from Jabir ibn Abdullah, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, the best people are those who are the most useful to others. Okay? And this is where the third sector of the financial sector, the third sector of the Islamic finance must be enhanced. And I put down 4 sectors. One is zakat. Zakat is a bit easier because it's compulsory. It's the third pillar of Islam. So, like it or not, you have to pay. Otherwise, it's war against you. Zakat. Wakaf is not compulsory. Infaq, the institution from where I am representing, Infaq is also not compulsory. And then number 4, a system which over the last so many years people are talking about that should be in the business system, but over the last 10 years I can see some write-ups saying that it should be in the ijtimai sector, which is qard. Okay, Qardu Hasan. The only loan in Islamic economics is Qardu Hasan because there is no interest. But then, if we don't have rich people, how are we going to get the money? Okay. And as what I can say, we should be, as what YAPIM does, helping people, those who are needy, who are poor, those in the B40 people, train them to become entrepreneur so that they can be out from the B2 or B1 or B40 level. So this is what we are doing right now. And over the long term, what we need is a society that appreciates the third sector of the Islamic finance, which is the ijtimai sector, the social sector, where we help each other to elevate our friends, our needy friends, so that their income becomes better and so that they are not near the kufur. Remember, we always dua, Allahumma inna na'udzubika minal kufri wal faqr. Why is it the dua relates kufur and faqr? There must be reason. Okay? So I think that's about it for the time being. Thank you very much. We'll see you again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, Mr. Amir. Okay, to put your sharing to summarize your sharing, perhaps Mr. Amir believe that we need to emphasize Islamic ethics, values, and principles in the economic system in order for us to revive the Islamic economic on this issue. This means that we need also to ensure fair distribution of wealth in the society. Okay, with that one, then we move on to our last panelist, Dr. Ahmed, to give your opinion, sharing insights for the strategies to revive Islamic civilization and also Asian civilization in the next 100 years.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. From an academic habit, I prepared a very long paper, but of course, I have to find ways to make it as short as possible. So I will try to do that, but still, I will need to use my entire time from the first and the second part. So I would like to thank the moderator for allowing me to do that. It is a privilege to discuss the future of Islamic civilization, especially after all these sessions in the before the noon, and also in our panel, who have contributed extensively in the study of Islamic civilization. As a scholar from Turkey, with a background on Islamic studies, my research focuses on Islamic legal theory, comparative law, and Islamic family law. In my presentation, I would like to share with you the scholarship on Islamic civilization produced in Turkey. Probably most of the audience is not familiar with, because most of this scholarship produced in Turkish. And also I will then draw some parallels with Malaysian thinkers. So I am trying to demonstrate that these solutions to the problems we have been facing actually has similar solutions, and they are not isolated phenomena. Based on these reflections, I will then provide my humble insights for the strategies for the next 100 years to revive Islamic civilization. The main point I am to make in this brief speech is that civilization is commonly equated with material prosperity and advancement. However, in Islamic civilization, these are only outcomes and not the ultimate purposes. So when we talk about reviving Islamic civilization, we should ponder on what do we mean by Islamic civilization? Do we mean there is a longing for prosperity and material advancement and the upper hand that once Muslims had in the past vis-a-vis the other civilizations? Or do we mean a comprehensive Islamic worldview that is distinct in nature and based on the will of Allah? In examining Islamic civilization, it is crucial to understand that the material advancement and prosperity, though often highlighted, are not the primary objectives. Islamic civilization is fundamentally rooted in Quranic revelation, which emphasizes correct belief and morality over worldly gains. The Quran underscores that without proper belief and ethical values, material success will lead to societal corruption, with the historical examples of Ad, Iram, Samud, Pharaohs, Egypt, etc. To conceptualize Islamic civilization, we can use a metaphor The spirit of Islamic civilization is the belief in the true nature of God and the hereafter. The body of Islamic civilization is the moral and legal dimensions of Islam that guides behavior. And the cloth represents the resulting advancement in science, technology, arts, and aesthetics. Focusing solely on material advancement without addressing the underlying ethical and spiritual components results in a mere imitation of Western civilization, which excludes divine guidance. Due to the intellectual crisis we have faced for the last 2-3 centuries, we tend to focus only the cloth, that is material prosperity. Now we can turn to the first part of the presentation, which is on the scholarship on Islamic civilization in Turkey. In Turkey, the study of Islamic civilization has produced a rich body of scholarship that I will focus on the ideas of only 3 scholars among them, Cemil Meriç, Nurettin Topçu, and Sezai Karakoç, who have explored various aspects of Islamic civilization with its history, philosophy, and law. Their works have provided valuable insights into the development of Islamic thought and its relevance to contemporary issues, and offer valuable insights for the future of Islamic civilization. First scholar, Cemil Meriç, emphasizes the need for critical engagement with Western thought and civilization. He believes that Muslims should study Western ideas and systems to understand their strengths and weaknesses, and to develop strategies that can counteract the negative influences while benefiting from the positive aspects. Meriç advocates for intellectual independence and the development of a distinct Islamic intellectual tradition. He criticizes the blind imitation of the Western civilization. Sezai Karakoç, the second scholar, emphasizes the importance of spiritual and cultural revival as the foundation for the future of Islamic civilization. He believes that the loss of spiritual values led to the decline of Islamic societies, and that a return to the core ethical and spiritual teachings of Islam is essential. Sezai Karakoç advocates for a cultural renaissance that draws on the rich literary, artistic, and philosophical traditions of Islam. He sees culture as a means to inspire and unite Muslims, fostering a sense of identity and purpose. While deeply rooted in tradition, Karakoç also calls for the integration of modern knowledge within the Islamic framework. Sezai Karakoç, in his work Lost Paradise, draws an interesting connection between the fall of Adam and the decline of Islamic civilization. And he says, Adam's encounter with Satan, his fall and his subsequent repentance and elevation serve as a model for Islamic civilization. Karakoç emphasizes that the fall or decline of a civilization is inevitable. But the more important thing is to revive from this fall and rise again. So Karakoç believes that Islamic civilization can also be revived by returning to its core values and embarking on a spiritual quest. The next scholar, Nurettin Topçu, places a strong emphasis on education as the key to the future of Islamic civilization. He advocates for an education system that prioritizes ethical and moral development, grounded in Islamic principles. For Topçu, the cultivation of character and virtue is paramount. Topçu's vision includes a focus on social justice and the establishment of an ethical society. He believes that true Islamic civilization can only be realized when social and economic justice is achieved and when individuals act according to moral and ethical values of Islam. Sezai Karakoç, Cemil Meriç, and Nurettin Topçu, all these three scholars offer complementary but distinct theses for the future of Islamic civilization. Karakoç focuses on spiritual and cultural revival. Topçu emphasizes ethical education and social justice, and Meriç advocates for critical engagement with the West and intellectual independence. All three intellectuals, in parallel with what Sayyid Naqib al-Attas argues regarding the threat of secularism in Islamic civilization, and Sayyid Hussein al-Attas on the erring modernization. One of the central ideas of all thinkers is the emphasis on adab. We can add one Muhammad Noor and Taha Abdul Rahman from Morocco. Also in the before the noon session, I think Professor Muht Farid also emphasized the importance of adab. So all these scholars agree that there is a significant role for adab in the revival of Islamic civilization. But although many scholars emphasize the role of adab or Islamic ethics in reviving Islamic civilization, there is often little discussion on how to instill adab in the lives of Muslims beyond educational institutions. Adab is frequently treated as something that can be learned through lectures or formal educational reforms. While it is crucial to base educational institutions on Islamic values and continually integrate Islamic codes of conduct and practice into education, it is also important to emphasize that adab is not taught by lecture alone. It is learned through observation and modeling. Adab must be practiced and demonstrated in everyday life, both within and outside of educational institutions. Therefore, we do not only need people who can articulate the virtues of Islamic adab, we need more people, more individuals who embody these values. Starting with the family, we need fathers, mothers who are role models for their children. We need more teachers and professors who are role models for their students. We need more tradesmen, employers, and officers in the government that behave within the boundaries of the Islamic adab. This is exactly what living Sunnah means. The Prophet actually gave this model and Sahaba took it from him. And subsequent generations always had their role models from the earlier generations. However, especially in the last 3 centuries, this chain of adab significantly damaged. Alhamdulillah, we still have role models today, but compared to those times in the past, the number of role models are very few. Repairing this broken or damaged line or chain will take at least a few generations, and each of them must have leaders and role models whom the Quran refers as al-a'imma, salihun, or muqarrabun. If we fail to have those leaders who represent the core values of Islam and live by its ethical standards, we might have a prosperous and advanced civilization in the Muslim world by the end of the next 100 years, but we cannot call this a Muslim civilization. So now we can turn to the strategies to embody those Islamic ethics and practices and make them the norm in Muslim societies for now and future generations. I will begin with a question. What is the most vital challenge? To be more precise, the most dangerous threat for Muslims in the next 100 years? In my humble view, the most significant challenge faced by the Islamic world in the modern era is the inclination towards worldly and material pursuits. This is articulated by many scholars as secularization, but the concept of secularization does not connotate entirely what I mean here. A Muslim, even an Islamist, can fall in the inclination towards worldly and material pursuits without thinking or feeling that he is secularized by rationalizing within the Islamic worldview. I am not arguing for or exalting for ascetic lifestyle here. Rather, I am trying to say what Abu Hanifa said once. He was asked by a person, and he said, our hearts are attached to our wealth, but even though you are among the wealthiest people, you don't seem attached. How do you manage this? And Abu Hanifa responds by saying, son, I leave my wealth in the barn where it belongs to, not in my heart. Given the reflections and insights provided around the concept of adab and Islamic values, a multifaceted strategy is essential for the revival and flourishing of Islamic civilization over the next century. Leaving some other important topics, such as politics, economics, technology, to other speakers, I will focus on the three following key areas this strategy should encompass: education, family, and non-governmental organizations. Although I am not an expert in education, but as a lecturer and an academic in Islamic studies, I want to point out two main problems in discussions about reforming education in Muslim world. First, Islamic education is not the same studying Islam. Studying Islam is a specific academic field with various disciplines requiring intense efforts to master them. In contrast, Islamic education is a holistic approach to all levels of education, both institutional and non-institutional, based on Islamic values. It aims to develop individuals by building character grounded in Islamic ethics and practices. This character entails responsibility toward the creator, created, the surrounding, including people and environment, and forbidding wrong, commanding right, etc. And one does all these solely for the satisfaction of Allah. Confusing Islamic education with the study of Islam leads to enthusiastic people who are eager to speak about Islam without a proper education. Second, when discussing educational reform, we tend to focus solely on institutional education, particularly universities. While they are certainly important, universities are the last station in the journey of character building. For institutional learning, from age 4 to 6 and from age 7 to 15 is much more critical. More importantly, Islamic education should not be limited with institutional education. First and foremost, the family is where the individual gains their ethics. Fathers, mothers, grandfathers, grandmothers, extended family members, they should view family as the center for character formation and strive to be role models for younger generations. This takes us to the second important key area: family, which is the bedrock of Muslim society. Muslim family has been facing constant challenges and threats in the modern times. Among Muslim communities, the family holds great significance. As pointed out earlier, it is the primary institution through which Islamic values, traditions, and teachings are passed down through generations. However, the modern era presents numerous threats and challenges that endanger the traditional Muslim family structure. These challenges are multifaceted, encompassing socio-economic, cultural, and ideological dimensions. I will talk about cultural and ideological dimensions here. Globalization and pervasive influence of Western culture have introduced new cultural norms and values that sometimes conflict with the traditional Islamic teachings. Media, including television and internet, often portray lifestyles and values that are at odds with Islamic principles. This exposure leads to confusion and identity crisis among Muslim youth who may struggle to reconcile their cultural heritage with the modern world. Social changes, such as the increasing acceptance of individualism and secularism, also pose a threat to Muslim family. The emphasis on individual rights and personal freedom undermine the collective and independent nature of the family. As for the ideological threats, radical feminism and liberalism have significantly affected Islamic principles regarding family roles and relationships by promoting concepts such as gender equality and sexual freedom that causes devaluation of traditional gender roles and an undermining of the family as a cohesive unit. While Islam advocates for the respect and rights of women, it also emphasizes the complementary roles of men and women within the family. To address these challenges, Muslim families and communities need to adopt proactive and comprehensive strategies that stress on the strengthening Islamic education. Providing children with a strong foundation in Islamic teachings and values is crucial. So, regarding the family, another important strategy is community support. Building strong community networks can provide families with support, resources, and a sense of belonging, which takes us to the last stage, last key area, which is reviving waqfs. Certainly, states have an important role in implementing the aforementioned strategies, but non-governmental institutions have more important roles. It is great to observe that there is a growing body of NGOs in the Muslim world. However, we have two major problems in this area. First, intense focus on humanitarian aid. The second, overlapping functions of many NGOs. The majority of NGOs operate in the field of urgent humanitarian aid, which is, despite it is important, this unbalanced focus should be changed. Secondly, the majority of NGOs have the same similar fields of operation. On the contrary, Islamic civilization, as the civilization of Waqf, had continuous income, and they did not operate by collecting sadaqah from community. They had specific micro goals and focused only on those goals. In the Ottoman period, there were thousands of waqfs with clear boundaries focused on single topics, such as waqf for aiding children who lost their money, or waqf aiming to make doctors kind, or waqfs for planting willows by the rivers. So in this way, they provided services, even areas where the state could not, and they succeeded in doing so by focusing on the pleasure of Allah. In conclusion, the revival of Islamic civilization necessitates a multifaceted approach that encompasses educational reform, strengthening the family unit, and revitalizing Waqf through non-governmental organizations. By focusing on holistic Islamic education, which integrates ethical and moral development, and by reinforcing the family's role in character formation, we can create a strong foundation for the future generations. Additionally, redefining the operational focus of NGOs to include diverse and specialized areas of support will allow for a more balanced, sustainable impact. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amir, for your sharing. Okay, so we can see from his sharing session that from educational perspective, there must be continuous engagement between Muslim and Western scholars, and this means that we need to instill the spiritual and cultural values into family and scholarship works as part of the process to revive Islamic civilization. Okay, actually, we ran out of time, but still to give opportunities for the audience to ask any questions to our great panelists here. I just can take only one question to respect the panelists for the next session. Okay, please introduce your name and the organization or countries you're from. Thank you.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ahmad from ITCON, an NGO for Islamic Intellectual Group on Policy and Good Governance. Okay, as we all know, the strategy of our Prophet Muhammad SAW upon arriving Madinah is establishing the mosque, the Masjid Nabawi. The second act that he did was establishing the market. And within 6 months of that establishment, the economic is revised, is transformed. And that become the lifeblood and the source of fund for the civilization, for the Madani during Prophet time. Now, in Malaysia, we have already independence for 60 years, but the needle of the economic ummah doesn't move at all, as mentioned by Saudara Amir tadi. Now, my question is, what are the strategies by the Ministry of Religious Affairs under Yang Berhormat Dato Zul? There are two institutions under the religious affair. Number one is Tabung Haji, which in which the vision is to the pillar of the ummah economic success. And number two is YAPIM, headed by Mr. Amir, memperkasa ekonomi ummah, strengthening the economy ummah. My question is, what are the strategies that are going to be adopted or going to be implemented to ensure the vision of this institution are achieved? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for the questions. Okay, that's all we can take for these sessions. I'm so sorry so much. Okay, okay, to save our time, so let's have our panel to answer that question as well as wrapping up the session. Okay, thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for the questions pertaining to the strategies the next 100 years. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. So under the ministry, Jabatan Perdana Menteri Hawal Agama, there are not only two big institutions. We have 14 agencies. YAPIM and Tabung Haji, just 2 out of 14 agencies under JPM Hawal Agama. So let me address specifically the questions on Tabung Haji. So the original aspirations of Tabung Haji to help the depositors to go for Hajj, and then we mobilize the fund, okay, for the benefits of the depositors as well for the benefit of the Ummah. So what next? What next? So if you look at the transformations or the evolutions of Tabung Haji, you can see the dynamicity and how that Tabung Haji tried to empower and also try to penetrate their influence and contributions in the society, not only in Malaysia now, but also export beyond Malaysia. So by looking at the strategies, you can always look at the diversifications of the investment, diversifications of the project, diversifications of the portfolios. So this is among others the strategies. But what is more important now nowadays is that how that you can strengthen the governance and also make sure that all the investment will produce benefits and also profitable, but at the same time, it will also contribute to the social impact, socio-economic development. So the ministry or the department, Jabatan Perdana Menteri Hawak Agama now monitor closely, and there will be several transformations that we will do. One of them will be, we will try to strengthen the acts or the legislations, Tabung Haji, Akta Tabung Haji. We are working on it. Secondly, we are trying to strengthening the governance and also the presence of Tabung Haji, and to produce more impacts to the community. And right now, from the reports and also from the strategic planning of Tabung Haji, we can see that Tabung Haji also is embarking to the digital economy, and also to look at how that we can serve not only Malaysian but also serve at least the regional populations in Southeast Asia. So in conclusions, what I can say is that Tabung Haji is just one of the agencies that can contribute towards contributing towards Ummah development. But there are other agencies that can contribute. But Tabung Haji now looking at not only for Hajj and Umrah, but also looking at from the economic and social impact development, including the digital transformation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Prof. Rahman Sumit, thank you for the question. Yeah, maybe I first, boleh. Okay, on YAPIM, Islamic economic development as per in the name of the institution. So we actually concentrate more on the non-bankable people. I mean, people like you, people like us in this room, if we go to the bank, we can get financing, inshallah. With our pay slip and whatever, we can get financing. But down there, so many people, including those in the nano and micro entrepreneurs, they go to the bank, it's very difficult for them to get financing because they are called non-bankable. Okay, they don't have that level of bankability among the banks. So one of the things that we do is to address this issue. And this issue was addressed in the year 2000 when the government actually gave us, sum of money that we were able to start Arahno business. I think you know very well about Arahno Yapim. We have 199 branches throughout Malaysia currently, excluding 6 mobile units. So over there, at least 25% of those yang pergi pajak gadai, they are actually doing the pawning for the purpose of working capital. So because they are not bankable, they have jewelry, they just pawn it, and then after 3-4 months, they will redeem. We are actually looking into also other things that we may be able to do given our limitation. That's one. Number two, as what I said a bit just now, we are also into other things like providing amal jariah. Okay, there are some people and who we have the SOP lah, who are those whom we can help. Okay, this is the one-off thing. And because we understand there are also some people who are just above the threshold for zakat, they won't be able to get zakat. So this is where we, the Infaq institution, can come in and help these people. Okay. And another thing is that we are also into entrepreneurial development. Okay, but we don't concentrate on the small, medium scale because the banks will be able to help them. But we concentrate on the micro and nano entrepreneurs. Okay, nano entrepreneurs, we hope that they will be elevated to micro, and micro with our training, with our grant and whatever, they can be elevated to small, by which time they can go to the bank and get financing themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmad Rahman, for teaching me about what the Prophet did when he arrived in Medina. First, he built the mosque. Kemudian, he built the marketplace. I think that's amazing. I just finished reading Dr. Martin Ling's Muhammad last year. One very touching incident, or rather story, in that book, which actually resonate with what all the other speakers talk about adab and value, was when the Prophet was on the way to Medina. It was a very critical moment. It's a very dangerous moment. Abu Bakar offered him a better camel, Kaswa. He said, "No, take it. This is a better camel for you to travel in a very dangerous journey." But what was very touching was that the Prophet actually said, "No, I will pay for it." So even in that very critical moment, the Prophet demonstrated very high adab, value, morality, ethics, and leadership, in the sense that he would not receive things for free, even at that dangerous time. So I think that is very important when it comes to even the running of our ministry and the running of government. I think that defines Madani, Kerajaan Madani. For Kesuma, we rebranded from KSM, Kementerian Sumber Manusia, KSM, to Kesuma. It means flower in Old Malay, flower, vitality, youth, hope, etc. But for Kesuma, our focus from the onset was what I call 3K: kebajikan, kemahiran, dan keberhasilan. Basically, welfare of the workers, skills of the workers, and productivities of the workers. And it's defined by 4 key themes. Better pay, because you go to work for salary. So better pay must be priority. Better social security. This parliament sitting, I just tabled 2 new legislation to increase and improve Pekeso protection for our workers. Better training schemes. We'll go all out in terms of training, and better governance. And I want to just focus last few points on the last point, better governance, which I think this is the core and foundation of what we do. We can have all sorts of programs, all sorts of policies, but if there's no governance, or what our Prime Minister always emphasized, tata kelola, then we don't have to talk about delivery. So in terms of governance, I think the Auditor General's report, what we did was, we were the first ministry, I think, ever in history that responded within 24 hours, not only with statements, but the ministry itself went on to launch an MACC report on the findings of Auditor General's report. I think that's never happened before, because we want to show that leaders must exhibit the highest level of integrity possible. As an example, a role model, as you said. And we have also instructed the ministry to appoint a third-party independent auditor to audit as per the recommendation of the PAC. But that aside, just want to share 3 governance improvement that we have done in the past 6 months, 6 bulan. Out of the many, 3, I think this is very exciting for us. We call it Rekayasa Kesuma, basically re-engineering of our ministry. Number 1, 3 examples. Number 1, our Jabatan Pembangunan Kemahiran, which is the department that is responsible for issuing certificates, skill certificates. So in a year, we issue about 80,000 skill certificates, Sijil Kemahiran Malaysia, to all sorts of level and sectors all over the country. It takes 4 months to process 1 certificate in the past. Through Rekayasa Kesuma, we have reduced it to 2 weeks. That's 1. We reduced 72% of the cost. Number 2, industrial court. We have a process which will take about 1 month. It's basically checking up on the parties involved. Basically search on the party involved. It will take about 30 days, 1 month in the past. But through Rekayasa Kesuma, now we only need 3 days, right? Industrial Court, Malaysia. Finally, final example of our governance. Pekeso usually issues out guarantee letter, GL, to members or pencarum, contributors who had to be hospitalized, warded. It takes about 3 days to issue a guarantee letter, which is okay. If you are in Malaysia, 3 hari, birokrasi kerajaan, not bad lah. Okay, 3 days. But through Rekayasa Kesuma, Okay, this process, to be very honest, is still ongoing. We are hoping to implement it this year, through Rekayasa Kesuma. I said 3 days is a matter of life and death hospital. We will improve it to 1 hour. So I think this is the foundation of governance that we want to not just emphasize in Kesuma, but whole of government. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
All right. Okay. With that, I think we hope we end this session. Means this session has come to an end. Thank you, and we hope this session contributes something meaningful for everyone to reflect and play our part for the next revival of Islamic and Asian civilization. Okay. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists here: YB Steven Sim, YB Dr. Zulkifli, Mr. Amir Ali, and Dr. Ahmed. Thank you so much for your time and sharing.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Madam Susanna, for moderating the third session. Now we are pleased to invite Yang Berbahagia, Dato Ahmad Azam Rahman, President Movement for an Informed Society, WADAH, to come on stage and present a token of appreciation to all our presenters and the moderator. We begin with Yang Berhormat Steven Sim to receive a souvenir. And next, Yang Berhormat Senator Dr. Zulkifli Hasan. We invite next Dr. Ahmad Kanal. Mr. Amir Ali Bali Muhammad. Please, Dr. Ahmad. And of course, our moderator, Madam Susanna. Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much. And please, one photo op. Please take your seat at the stage, inshallah. Alhamdulillah, ladies and gentlemen. We will now proceed to our final session for Global Madani Forum 2024. With the theme, next is the future leaders we need for a civilizational revival. Alhamdulillah. To that, I would like to invite our moderator for our final session today, Mr. Muhammad Zul Aiman Zulkifli, President of National Union of Malaysian Muslim Students, PKPIM, to lead the session. Please welcome Mr. Muhammad Zul Aiman. Mr. Muhammad Zul Aiman Zulkifli is currently the President of the National Union of Malaysian Muslim Students, PKPIM, a graduate of the National University of Malaysia, UKM, in Masters in Applied Physics and a Bachelor's in Science Physics. He has extensive leadership and exposure on various youth platforms such as a treasurer, Malaysian International Islamic Federation of Student Organization 2023 till present, representative for Malaysia to Second World Islamic Youth Forum in Turkey, a member of Global Coalition of Youth and Sports for Al-Quds and Palestine 2022, representative of Malaysia to Conference on Global Coalition of Youth and Sports for Al-Quds and Palestine in Turkey, and as part of the Students' Representative Council of UKM 2018 to 2019. May I now hand over the session to you, Mr. Muhammad? Okay, please.